and gentlemen, we'll call Public Policy and Finance Committee together. We're going to hear the substitute for the second time, so it will be eligible for an action today. It's the substitute to House Bill 149, LC 431908S. Chairman Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you today for your consideration committee substitute to House Bill 149 as LC 431908S. This bill, for those of you that were not in the first subcommittee hearing, is it allows a pass-through entity, which most people in Georgia are familiar with, LLCs, limited liability companies, multi-member LLCs, as well as S corporations. Currently, those are both those type of business entities are referred to as pass-through entities, in that there's typically no tax paid with their income tax returns, which are filed by each March 15th without unless the extensions are made. This bill would allow an entity, a pass-through entity in Georgia, to pay the state income taxes at the entity level. That's by election. No entity is being forced to do this. So it's an annual election. It's non-revocable. You can't change your mind halfway in the process, but you can pay your state income taxes at the entity level. There is no tax. There's no fiscal hit to the state of Georgia. The state receives the same amount of revenue it receives if it were to be paid on your individual income tax return. And the advantage to the members or shareholders in S corporation is that by doing this, you lower your adjusted federal gross income, and thereby you're able to enjoy a slightly lower federal tax liability on your income tax returns when you subsequently file your federal income tax returns. This methodology is frankly a workaround against the state and local tax limitation of $10,000 on your individual returns. It's commonly referred to as the SALT limitation. And this methodology has been reviewed and approved by the Internal Revenue Service, by all the resources that I've been able to follow and check with. It comes with the endorsement of all the businesses that I'm in Georgia. It's had no known opposition. The CPA's organization has reviewed it, and as well as Georgia Bankers Association and many other organizations in Georgia. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. If not, I'd love for the committee to consider moving to the big committee.
Chairman Houston.
I've got a question. You know, this has no impact on the amount of revenue we bring in. Yet, the way I understand it, the Department of Revenue has to audit 1% of these. Is that an annual audit?
I saw that in the fiscal note.
And it was 246,000.
I did see
annually
that.
to audit. Why would they audit it if it didn't have any?
That's a question we'd have to ask the Department of Revenue. I don't know if they've dialed in today or not. That's a good question. I just saw the fiscal note. We all knew that it would be zero impact to the state.
It's no impact to the state. Why are we auditing?
John Foster, I see you on Zoom, or can you hear that?
Yeah, I did. Chairman Williamson and Representative Houston, I haven't seen the fiscal note, but the way the credit works is, or excuse me, the way the bill works is the entity pays the tax, and then the person that would have paid the tax, the owner, they take a subtraction. So I'm assuming the audit piece is just to make sure that the subtraction is the same as the entity paid. So just to make sure that the bill is being followed as written. But again, I haven't seen the fiscal note, but that's what I'm thinking would be the reason why we would want to audit it. Does that answer your question?
Mr. Foster, I'm going to read the fiscal note on what Representative Houston is referring to, Chairman Houston, says impact on state revenue. The Georgia State University's Fiscal Research Center found that the bill would have no impact on state revenue. The bill's provisions ultimately impact the taxpayer's federal return by impacting the $10,000 limit on state and local tax deductions. However, the bill does not allow a pass-through entity to claim the deduction for taxes paid on a state return. The total level of deductions taken against state income tax does not change and state revenue is not affected. Then it goes on to say impact on state expenditures. And this was noteworthy to me. The Department of Revenue would have an annual one-time cost associated with the bill. DOR noted that auditing just 1% of effective returns would require 3 additional auditors at an annual cost of $246,470. The one-time cost of $4,050 would be incurred for computers and phones. That sort of to further Representative Chairman Houston's point, that was surprising to me as well, that you're still talking about the same number of returns being prepared. There's no extra returns, and it's just surprising that it would be an additional incurred cost just because the tax is being paid on one return rather than another. So
Well, sorry, Chairman.
yeah, that's all I wanted to comment on.
Yeah, and it does sound like the auditors would be needed to verify that the amount that's being subtracted by the individuals, because the individuals will get a subtraction because the tax has been paid at the entity level, but to ensure that that's being done correctly. Does that make sense? I could give him.
I just would have assumed it would come through your normal auditing, that you wouldn't be looking at every one of them. You'd just be normally your normal auditing practices.
Yeah, if you'd like, I could circle back with our audit group and we could get back with you offline.
Well, that'd be fine. Even if, again, just wearing my business hat, it just seems like a lot of money for that function. But even that aside, I think this delivers a wonderful opportunity to the businesses across the state of Georgia, especially small businesses, most of whom, when they do establish any kind of business entity, are using LLCs. So I think it's going to be a huge boom to the citizens and job creators in Georgia.
If I may, John, the audit cost is something that you're going to have with any of these bills that come out, if I may, that requires an audit. So wouldn't that be an internal cost?
Yeah, I didn't.
This audit amount is going to be in pretty much any fiscal note where there's an audit involved. So essentially, that's essentially going to be there anyway, won't it?
Yeah, I understand your point. I didn't provide those numbers, so I just can't really speak to it. But as I said, I'll add that to my list of things that you'd like explained.
You know, we'd have to fund
We'll make
$250,000 more a year just to do this.
Point taken.
Thank you. I've asked my question.
That's a great question. Mr. Foster, we'll get this copy of the fiscal note to you.
Okay, yeah, and as I said, I'll check both on the extent of the amount and then also the chairman's question about wouldn't that be baked into every bill, essentially?
Yeah.
Sure, I'm happy to do it. And I'm sorry that I don't actually know the answers. We can certainly get you an explanation. We're happy to help, and we appreciate Chairman Williamson. He let us participate, and we are thankful for that.
Other members? Thank you, John. Is there anybody to testify? As no testimony, then we are in a position with a second hearing to take a motion one way or another. Have a motion to pass or a second? We got a second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Bill passes on to full committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. And I do want to give a special shout out to Mr. Foster and their willingness to work through some of the clarity issues on this measure. So thanks again, Mr. Foster.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. What do you want to do?
Quick and just say, evidently Chairman Rhodes has got a meeting at 2 in this room. And we were under the impression that we had this room for an hour and a half to 2 hours. So we're going to move this quick as we can. We don't want to do it too quick such that things don't actually get vetted properly. But most of what we're going to hear today, we've heard before in some capacity. So Chairman Williamson's going to finish this one up.
Your bill, right. All right, since Chairman Stevens has got a bill he wants to present, I'll step in and chair the remainder of the, but if you go ahead, Chairman, and present your bill and give us the LC number.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. This bill might sound familiar to it. It's the lodging facilitator bill on the heels of the marketplace facilitator bill that we did last year. This bill passed out of the House last year. Its aim is to collect hotel motel taxes across the board from these innkeepers and lodgers and that sort of stuff. So I'll be glad to go in detail, even though I think if you've been here before, you voted on this already. It got held up with COVID. Essentially, this is the exact same language that you voted on last year on House Bill 448, which passed the House and never was considered in the Senate. This will collect the taxes that are currently due by host property owners and remit it to the state to the tune of about $30 million.
We do have some testimony, is that correct? We have Miss Pam Odell that's online that would like to speak to the bill.
Quickly.
If you'll hold your motion for a minute.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, members of the committee. My name is Pam Odell, and I am the Executive Director of the Short-Term Rental Owners Association of Georgia, and the acronym is STROAGA. We are a statewide organization that represents owners and managers throughout the state. And I wanted to speak with you about a number of issues. I know I heard there's a competition for the room, so I will be brief and I will come and speak at the general meeting also. In large part, we are in support of this bill. It does three things that we appreciate. Number one, it creates parity within the lodging industry. Long standing grievance of the hotel motel industry. Number two, it really is powerful refutation and puts the issue at rest that we have been accused of not paying taxes. And number three, it contributes to local governments. Now, it's important for the members of the committee to understand who we are. We are property owners. We are taxpayers, and we are citizens. In large part, we are mom and pops. There's a speculation that maybe we are big conglomerate entities. I can only speak to my membership, gentlemen, ladies. My membership are mom and pop folks. I am speaking to you from my cabin in Blue Ridge, Georgia, in Fannin County, home to the speaker, where almost 1/4 of the structures qualify as short-term rentals. I know people in my county that are what we refer to as owner-occupied short-term rentals, which means that they vacate their house temporarily and then reside in it in order to rent it for income. So these in large part are sometimes low-income people, people that are trying to make ends meet. And so the tax is really a pass-through. In other words, rent owners and rental managers don't pay this. The guest pays it. And that is something we like. There are a couple of concerns that I have. Number one, I spoke to the chairman, who I have a great deal of respect for, and I appreciate him bringing this bill. But afterwards, I spoke to Airbnb. They have some issues with regard to the specific language of the bill. Airbnb is a powerful partner of ours. They're not the only platform, and it was their contention that there is some an unlevel playing field there. They're not a sponsor. They don't give us money. I want to be clear on that, but they're a powerful sponsor. I would be remiss if I didn't mention something that I will elaborate on later, and that is the issue of bans. We have a serious and prevalent problem which concerns the pie of potential income and potential tax that this committee could use, and that is bans. There are several jurisdictions throughout the state that have either a full ban, in other words, the local government is.
So Dale, I hate to interrupt you, but this bill is not dealing with bans. If you wanted to address that through another bill, it'd be the time to do that, or address a member that might be interested in. This committee's short on time, and we're addressing the measure in front of us right now. As far as Airbnb, they've got a good presence at the Capitol, and they're more than welcome to contact the author or any member of the committee at any time.
If I might tell you why that should interest you as the taxing entity, it has to do with the pie and the amount of tax.
And being respectful of everybody's time today, we appreciate your input and comments. Does anyone have a question for Ms. Odell? Any member of the committee? Thank you, Ms. Odell. Any more questions for the author? Any other comments from members of the committee? Questions? Hearing none, what's the appetite for the committee? Got a motion to second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations to the author. The meeting's adjourned.